Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is I, your humble servant, the Q Dog, in the Moran family studio with my lovely wife, Jeannie. Jeannie Moran, what are you doing? Tell the people who you are and what you do.
I'm your wife, and I do the podcast.
You do so much more.
I do, but this is the main part of it, I guess, right now.
No, it is not.
Okay. Then you tell me, what do I do?
If you don't know what you do, how do you know what you do? But you don't know what you do. You got to know what you do. Anyway, let's say this: you, for over 23 years, have been the purveyor, the domestic engineer of this growing family that we have.
It's called management.
Management. That's right. You're the day-to-day operations manager
Mhm.
of the Moran family, which includes now 8 almost all adult children. But you've been doing that for, you started that particular role 23 years ago.
Mhm.
So you are the secret sauce to our success at the Moran family. You are also an author, a published author, X2. What do you think about that?
Coming up on X3.
Coming up on Triple X. Oh, my. And you are my favorite human being on planet Earth.
Yay, me.
I've never been to any other planets, so I don't know if
I'm the
somebody
only
else.
person you've ever asked to marry twice, too. So
That's true. If you didn't know, this year it's 2024. Mine and Jeannie's 25th wedding anniversary happened, and I proposed to her to renew our vows, and she said yes.
you got lucky. No, I'm kidding.
Winning. All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. This is actually going to be a very serious episode. I'm kind of being a little bit lighthearted now, just because that's who we are. But make sure you, like the listener to this email, utilize our email address. It is Quincy@mvsmpodcast.com. Go ahead and check out QuincyMoran.com. And there you will find all the brands that we are creating to impact history. And you've already heard, bless you.
I knew it was coming right before we recorded. I knew it was coming. It just didn't get there.
You should have alerted me.
I tried.
Holy smokes. Hey, that's nature. It happens. Nature calls. So go to QuincyMoran.com to check out all the brands. We are creating multiple brands to impact culture. That is what my calling is to do, whether it's through, man to man, husband to husband, husband to husband's family. It is what we do. So I want you to go check out what it is we do, and then look on there, because you can help us expand the brand recognition by going to QuincyMoran.com and checking out our apparel. So it's QuincyMoran.com/apparel. A few things you can look at. It's the flagship, the OG, the Man vs. Marriage, the podcast. This particular Built Ready, which says, I wasn't born ready. You hear that all the time. I was born ready. Well, I was not. I was built ready for what my family needed. There is the awesome Family Famous line, established in 2020. Can't wait to tell that story. And the notorious Hustlemania, because I'm always out trying to get things done on behalf of my family and the kingdom. So make sure you go to QuincyMoran.com/apparel. Now, really quickly, you may be asking yourself, if you've just jumped into this podcast, who are these people and what are they doing here? It's called Man vs. Marriage, a very provocative name. I don't want to be against my wife. I want to be in this with my wife. Yeah, it's a provocative name, and it's that way on purpose. But if you think about it, you and your wife are on the same team, and you are competing in this thing called marriage, and we are winning together. And the people on this end of the microphone, as you've heard, married for 25 years. We were both told at one point that we couldn't have kids, and the doctors were incorrect, whether it's by mistake or, I guess it could only be by mistake. And now we have 8 children. We have 1 boy. We have 7 girls. We have a set of triplets, a set of twins. In our family, we have diagnosis of autism within our children, times 3 to varying degrees. We went through an extremely difficult time in our life, in our relationship, about year 10 in our marriage. And we had the opportunity to say, we'll be roommates and we'll figure this out until the kids grow up and then we'll go our merry way. Or we can double down, reinvest, get some help, and make this marriage what we signed up for, which is amazing. And after about 10 years of investing in our relationship, being intentional, what I like to call living on purpose for a purpose, our relationship was in a place that it had never been, not even at the beginning. I mean, it had transformed. And so I wanted to bring this, our coach, this process, and our journey to you. And that's what we started doing 6 years ago. And so throughout that time, there was an incredible amount of adversity going on in our life. Our children were being molested by babysitters. We were in financial duress. We were losing our home. We had to eat out of a food bank. There were brain surgery after brain surgery after brain surgery. Seizures were going on, medical emergencies, things just happening. They just all started stacking up on us, not to mention what was going on with autism and so on. And the fact is that because Jeannie and I were willing to put the work in, we were willing to learn and exercise forgiveness, we were willing to get rid of our resentment through this process, we came to find that if we can get through it, if we're willing to do it, there's a good chance that anybody can. And so that's what we're here doing. This podcast is a journey podcast. We take our experiences, we give them to you. And then like today's show, if there's someone there, you email us. We've done this multiple times with what's going on in your life. We call it standing outside the frame. You get a different perspective on what's going on in your life. You get to hear it as if your friend was telling you what's going on in his or her life. And then that helps you gain a different perspective. Today might be a little bit different, but it's going to be on that premise. So if you can relate to any of those things, and maybe not to the degree that you're hearing that Jeannie and I went through, it's okay. But if you can relate to any of those things, your marriage is not what you thought it was going to be. You're disappointed, you have resentment, you're not having as much sex as you thought you would. Your marriage is just, it's not what you wanted. We're here to help you with that. And, we're not licensed therapists or counselors or anything. We're simply giving you our journey so it can impact your life. So as my cousin Noah taught me, eat the meat and spit out the bones, but take this and make this your very own so that you can have a successful relationship. You can impact culture in a very positive way within your home. And then the ripple effect from that is amazing. And so now that we're into this show about 9 minutes, I know you're looking at me in disgust. That's a long time, but these things have to be talked about. So maybe in the show notes, I'll put fast forward to minute 9 if you've heard all this crap. So today we're going to talk about listener email. And I have read this. Jeannie has not. I talked to her a little bit about it. But Jane, this is called Man versus Marriage, but there are women who listen to the program. And it's interesting because from time to time we get emails from said women and they want to know what's going on. They want our perspective. A lot of times the guys and the girls really love having your perspective, honey. We have one listener in particular or a couple listeners rather, that are always, and please get Jeannie's perspective on this. And that's why she's on this program, because you're going to get my thoughts. And I love to teach and coach and mentor and guide, but our marriage is made up of 2 sides, 3 sides really. But, we'll talk about that. It's our faith that we put together, just to clear that up. All right. So let me set the stage for you. Got this email. I'm going to put it up on the screen for you, the audio only listener. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. So go check it out on our YouTube page. It'll be up there, same day, same release. So, I Googled, if you have a podcast on your husband checking out other women, and I found a couple things saying that you have done one, yet I can't find it in the podcast search on Spotify. Would you please direct me to it? I need to hear your discussion on it. Thanks. Here's email 2. Thank you for reaching out. This is me to Jane. I can't say we've done an episode about that directly. I would be happy to do an episode about it directly if you want to email me what's going on. Tell me your story, and my wife and I will share our thoughts about it on air. We will keep you absolutely anonymous. You have my word. If you're uncomfortable with that approach, tell me how else I can help you. Quincy, a.k.a.
Cute dog.
That's right, girl. Come on. P.S. We have done some shows like this in episodes called Standing Outside the Frame. I'll look. Oops, I doubled up on that. I'll look into these episodes, give you some direction. Okay. So she got back to me. She said, yes, it'll have to be after this time. I want to sit down and tell you what it is I wrote or what it is that's going on. So I'm going to read this now here for you. And please, I'm manning the show. I'm producing the show. I'm working the technology as I'm reading. So forgive me if it's a little clunky. But here we go. I wrote a book. It looks like. My apologies. I haven't talked about it much, and it's been a long time since I've got things out, too. If you answer this on your show, I don't expect at all you to read out all of it or any of it if you want to put it in your own words. I will give you guys a little pretext before going into my main and current issue and questions. I'm also going to be extremely honest and authentic and may come out vain, yet that's something that I am not. I've always been a different type of girl. I hardly ever cry, but wish I knew how to now. I mean, how many people can relate to that? I've always been who I am, not following trends or anyone, actually. I speak my mind and can be too honest, especially when asked a question. Well, it sounds like you are.
I'm thinking.
Did you write this to me? I'm kidding. I had some friends who always tried to make me feel less than, but I noticed it came from a jealousy I didn't understand. I became aware that there was something about me physically that drew boys and men to me, but didn't understand what they saw. I still don't, actually. I never thought of myself as better than or less than. I was just me, and I would be the first to compliment any female I found beautiful or had an awesome outfit, etc. I learned today from my daughters that that's something that women do. They tell each other they're pretty. I had friends in every group, but as I got into junior high and high school, I hung out with the boys way more than any girls. So I heard how some boys think, feel, and talk about girls, along with how they act. I also learned not all teenage boys are like that either. When I met my first husband, I was instantly gone. That's when I quit hanging out in groups with just males, and some came out. Some came out and told me they had always hoped we'd be together. Anyways, fast forward to a week before our 10-year anniversary, we had a 5-year-old daughter and lost a son at 19 weeks. I'm very sorry to hear that. Very sorry. My heart goes out to you all. 3 big moves and constantly being alone since he was always working. I learned my family caught him at another woman's house and he had been with others. I kind of refused to believe it. He had been going to strip clubs and had a cocaine habit I was unaware of. He got mean, really mean and physical on occasions. Yet, I never, ever thought he would be unfaithful. So I was completely blindsided. I also knew that I didn't want to live always wondering where he is or what is he doing. So we divorced. Okay, I'm going to go to the next email. So forgive me for the gap. I had a son 4 years later, living a more wild lifestyle. I didn't want to be with his bio dad, And he said if he couldn't have me, he didn't want the kid. And I haven't seen, oh, shoot, it's kind of blocked off there. I can't really see that. Something 11 weeks long. So I changed my life instantly, knowing that I needed to be both mom and dad to this baby. I didn't go out anymore, nor did I have the interest or doing so. When he was 2, I met my current husband at work. I didn't even know he worked there for months. Then one day we started talking on a break, and it included deep friendship, or it continued to a deep friendship and love relationship. He is completely different from anyone I had ever been with, or you could say my normal type. Yet I felt like home with him. I shared everything, which was first because everything which was happening first, because I normally only give those closest to me little bits, but never all, and never to the depth I did with him. So he knew of all the betrayals, teenage adult rapes, just all of it. He knew everything. And she says, "I'm okay. I've done work on it." We've been married close to 8 years together since the end of 2015. In April 2016, he asked me to marry him after talking to my parents and daughter. He is quite overweight, and around the beginning of July, I told him that I was struggling with physical attraction, and I felt I needed to be honest. I told him it's something with me right now. However, if he was completely okay with himself, then I loved him enough to say something so he could find someone who was completely okay with him always too. Before the engagement, I also told him with having 2 kids, I didn't want with having my 2 kids, I didn't want any more. And let me see this real quick. Oh, with having 2 kids, I didn't want any more kids. And since he hadn't been married or had any biological kids and always wanted them, I would rather him find someone who also wanted more, so he could have, so he'd not have to sacrifice any dreams to be happy with me. I'm getting to it. I just want you to know as much as possible, I guess, because more is coming than originally planned. And this happens sometimes when you sit down to really go through what is going on. I think it's a great practice, whether you're emailing our show or you're overwhelmed and there are things that are like stacking up on you. Sometimes it's good to write these things out so that you can kind of get the air out of the balloon. Very, very strong principle that I believe in because it helps you kind of gain additional perspective. So here we go. At the beginning of August 2016, a sister got married out of state. I didn't go because I'd just been moved to a new store opening as department manager and had already requested 10 days off the next month for our vacation with my kids as kind of an introduction, since I wouldn't move in until marriage because I didn't want my daughter to ever either. However, our family vacation wasn't great. He was different is all I can think to say, and it threw me off. So I held out a little longer on getting married. We got married March 2017. I actually had a small surprise wedding for him to be different, and I didn't want another huge ordeal. And he was content with the courthouse just to marry me. We learned I became pregnant after our 1 year anniversary. During my pregnancy, I started basically to hate him. I was doing everything from kids, house, meals, shopping, errands for him, appointments, yard work. Example is having him sit outside and watch me dig out big rose bushes, which you have ever done. You know how difficult it is. That sucks, man. The thorns just suck. How difficult it is. Or raking and bagging leaves 3 weeks before giving birth, while he stands there, then leaves way too early to go to the airport for an out-of-state job training. We got some challenges here, folks. All right, a couple more screenshots, and then we'll get down to business. Trigger warning. Possibly. His second night gone, I randomly sat up at 2:30 a.m. and knew he was at a strip club. Weird premonition. I asked him the next day, and well, shoot, man, I wish I could see this. Let me try to read it this way instead. There we go. I had to take off the brand. Forgive me, everybody. I asked him the next day, and it was true. Lap dances in VIP rooms with his hands on her and her kissing his neck. My delivery was a blur, and I didn't want him to be. I didn't want him there. Then I found out he had a porn addiction. His dad started taking him to in-house stripper parties at 13 with Girls Gone Wild, always on TV, and him speaking vulgar about what he'd do to about every female in sight. He knew I saw men that go to strip clubs the same as I saw the boys and men I was raped by. It's just how my mind works. Trickled truth for months, and I learned what happened at his sister's wedding and what changed him. Long story short, the maid of honor flew in from states away, and he has always had a big thing. She's always had a big thing for him. His mom and sister didn't like me because his family is incredibly, I don't know what that word is, enmeshed, and I broke him out of it. So a plan was created to get them drunk and together, and it worked. Although he made the decision to have a one-night stand, and I told him I hold him accountable, I also separated myself from his mom and sister, especially after they figured out that I knew, and they said they never liked her, yet showed up at our house out of the blue. That never happened. Just to tell my husband that same girl was in town and staying at their house. That's low. I will give him credit that he chose to call his mom out and kept them at a distance, feeling as though they could ruin his marriage and happiness instead of protecting it. He quit masturbation and then porn. We did some work, and the year was we did some work in the year 2020. It was actually amazing and happy with an incredible closeness and calmness. Then it happened. He became obsessed with scanning and seeking out other females to look at in public. He even walked in literal circles around me to get a better look at a woman at the park. He had never been one to look at other women, or I would have noticed. Neither did my ex-husband, actually. We have had 4 counselors. 1 he quit, and 2, including those who have podcasts about porn, fired him for not doing anything they asked. A trip to California was my breaking point when he got lost staring at a girl in a thong on the beach while our kids went to the park, and I was in the bathroom changing to put on a swimsuit I thought he'd find hot on me. Then, after the moment of seeing him, he turned to look at two other girls in thongs as they walked by us, sitting next to each other, discussing my hurt about the above. I said, "I'm done." He sobbed, making more empty promises, and then and that he would pluck his eyes out. I stayed as he tried. Then he started his own business and got Facebook to promote his business, and being male on Facebook and all the thirst traps and inappropriate videos popping up got him going down the rabbit hole. So he deleted it. And when I found out he deleted it and asked why, he told me. One day we were arguing on the phone, and he told me that it is what men do, and I made him feel psychotic trying not to. And I can call it what I want, but he calls it choosing freedom. Last email, and then we'll get into it. I told him I can't live in a marriage feeling so small, undesirable, never enough, disrespected, and humiliated. And I certainly could never give all of myself, expressing pure love, or especially the best of myself, to him. It made me feel unvalued, unprotected, unsafe, with hidden secrets that he had been amplifying all of it. He stays silent. I've asked why and how a few moments, taking in a visual of another female, memorizing them and bringing them into our home mentally, who cares nothing for him, is more important, um, valued, and brings him more joy than having a marriage. And one, we say we want a bond with our kids. Let me see here. And having a family together. I'm usually met with silence or it isn't. Yet I point out that it must be because, like I said, I won't and can't live that way and be fulfilled and happy. And he said it's his right and called it freedom. So I have said we need to have the difficult conversation about how we can separate amicably and in a way that is best for our kids. He avoids it like the plague. Then I'll say we are only, let's see here, prolonging the inevitable and are both miserable in this marriage. So we need this discussion as much as I wish we didn't have to either. I have really thought about it if I could just live with it, because I've never felt more at home with someone or had such an overwhelming, all-consuming, fierce, deep feeling of love with anyone before. And just by a small touch or him leaning his forehead to mine, because I really wanted to know what it would be like, be and feel like, to be able to allow all those feelings to come out and express them openly and authentically, since I've never experienced it before, ever. That's what had me holding on to hope and staying. I can't. I just know I will never feel secure enough to express it with his obsession with being afraid to miss a glimpse of another female, um, in any way, shape, or form. So here comes the question: how do you handle or deal with your husband looking at other women all the time? Not in the normal way, or just noticing someone walk by, or whenever they think they're thinking somebody's attractive and letting it go in the same few seconds. We're leaving our son's game one night, and I turned to ask him something and watched his eyes uh, look at the woman in front of us, then immediately drop down to her butt. Then that time I stopped and said, okay, look, all you need to memorize whatever it is you need to so that you can actually hear what I'm saying. That's somebody who's very, really frustrated about the situation. He just said, I'm good. I know whenever other women are around before, I see them, because he starts getting really tense, fidgety, and starts to smile or laugh and says, yeah, like I had just had something funny to say. Or I can stand just behind him and literally his eyes are bouncing balls going from a woman to say game, woman, game, woman, game. I don't usually call him out. I just feel hurt, heavy, and like whoever the female is walks away with another piece of me that I had for him. Last two paragraphs, and then we'll get to this. Or do you want me to stop now?
Go ahead.
Okay. Now I will admit that I see men looking at me often, and when my husband notices, he gets highly irritated. I'm going to pause right there for...
Just finish.
Okay.
We'll unpack it in a minute.
I get asked for my number or a date quite often. Yet if I could make every male on this earth see me as the creature like Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, and my husband see me as the most beautiful, attractive, sexy, and valuable woman on the earth to just him, I could be happy. He's the only one I want for myself in every way. When I have told him this, he says, we have always had different experiences. You were wanted and I wasn't. So I ask if one woman would ever be enough for him, or if he's going to be lonely and unfulfilled, trying to get, see, and feel like other women want him, or find him attractive, and what that would really do for him because it's so empty. I promise you, because I know. Also, what is wrong with me? Why am I not speaking my mind or staying true to who I've always been, not allowing or tolerating others to continue betraying me or disrespecting me? I'm a shell of who I once was. Even my adult daughter has said she misses the mom she had, and that my youngest has never got the mom, and my middle boy probably doesn't remember what I was like or life was like with that mom. Why am I letting one man destroy me? Why am I keeping myself miserable? And I guess for other women too, since I now feel inferior to every one of them. So that's the end of that. There's a lot going on there. So I did a pretty crappy job of reading it all together.
So the guy that she's with now, is this the one who, when they got married, he was overweight? She made mention of it.
Yeah, that's her current husband. He's
Okay.
overweight. I don't know the current status, but I believe that he's still overweight. And
Okay, well then I know where the resentment sits. I know where the resentment sits because that was something that you and I struggled with in the beginning for a few times. Was I had to be very cautious on how I approached things with you when it came to your weight because it is a sensitive subject. It's not always something that the person can control, and since he already has the addictive behaviors for other things, food is probably what he was using to kind of stifle some of that in between, if that makes any sense.
okay.
Um, so the resentment would make sense. I could see where he would be feeling inadequate and frustrated. Um, I can't say that I agree with him looking at other people or lap dances or anything like that because you look at people, but generally, if either one of us looks at somebody, it's like a passing comment that both of us make, like, "Wow, that's a really pretty woman." But it's not something where we ogle or anything to that effect. I mean, even with my book covers and stuff, it's like, yeah, there's attractive guys on the front of them, but it's not something that I'm like, I gotta lick the pages. It's nothing like that. Um, but it sounds like to me, A, he had an addiction he didn't tell her about.
Mhm.
B, there's a one night stand that he had, so trust is broken on all sides here. She's not okay with his size and his weight, which I'm not saying it's wrong, right, or indifferent. Our issues, my own personal issues with Quincy's weight was one, it made sex very difficult for me. At the time when we were first married, I was a very small person. I was like 115 pounds.
Yeah, you're
And
5'4" and a half ish,
and
and
you were,
115 pounds, and I was
over 300.
like 350 when we got married.
And so there were some things that we had to work around to make that part of our life work.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I became pregnant, your weight went up as my weight went up. And it just became like I lost my weight after pregnancy. You did not always lose it right away. It was a process for several years to get that weight off. But the main concern for us when it came to your weight wasn't really the intimacy was a huge part, but the biggest concern was your health. It wasn't about anything. I was still attracted to you, but my attraction to you and my choice to love you was my choice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're choosing that, then you can't really, how do I put this? You have to be real careful how you say things. You have to be real careful what you point out and how you point it out, because if you haven't learned the say it ugly principle, which we didn't learn until 5 years ago, it can be pretty harsh on somebody. But that being said, I'm not blaming her. I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody. I'm looking at what caused the riff. I'm not looking at his looking at other women, because most of the time, if a guy is using porn or cheating on you or looking at other people with that type of interest, there's a issue in the bedroom. There is a mistrust somewhere, or there is some kind of disappointment in the situation on both sides of the coin. So I'm not saying that it's okay. What I'm saying is it might be his way of kind of getting back at. Does that make sense?
Try to unpack it some. I'm gonna go and look at when she had to have the discussion, because it was really, I I was a massive human being.
Mhm.
You were a very small human being. We still found a way to get it done. You know, wasn't
Yeah, but
it
it wasn't fulfilling to both of us at the time because the intimate connection is very different now than what it was then, but that also has to do with the work that we put into the marriage. It wasn't just the physical side of it. The other question would be, and again, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not laying blame, but these are things that come up when we find out that people are either have relationships where there's been cheating or they have relationships where he's got a porn addiction or these things are coming up. What is your intimacy life? What is your sex life like? Because if it's not fulfilling, it's not uncommon for someone to go looking for what it is that's missing.
yeah.
And again, I'm not pointing a finger. These are just common things that it's a common thread we find in these types of situations. I guess is what I'm looking at. The fact that there's already been infidelity, though, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one for me because for you and I, it would take a really strong act of God to keep us together if that happened. That is the only non-negotiable that we have in this marriage that would break the we're never getting divorced is if one of us cheated on the other. That is a we would try to work through it, but I cannot promise you that I would not walk away. Just because we've both had similar things happen in our upbringing, and it's just I don't know that we could handle that.
Yeah, and our intention is to remain faithful. I
Mhm.
would imagine everybody's is, but that's we've been through some really difficult times. We don't know what that would look like, and I pray to God that both you and I are very responsible, and keep the other's heart on our mind if we were approached with anything like that. I've never been approached like that. I always try to set the tone when I'm around, like in my
You
professional
don't
career.
notice when people find you attractive or when people are flirting with you. Your daughters and your wife, we've noticed it. We've seen it. Um, but you, because it is not in your peripheral, you're not looking for that. You don't see it. The girls and I have seen it. But like you said, I don't notice when guys look at me. The only time I'm ever really uncomfortable is if somebody says something to me and it kind of, I mean, I've had to ask you before. Guy said this to me and I don't know how I'm supposed to take that because in my mind, you're my person. So I don't really look for what does it mean? What am I supposed to do? I don't care. In
Well,
all honesty, I just don't care. It sometimes it makes me feel weird because it's like I'm wearing a wedding ring. I've got my vows and I mean I'm marked up as yours intentionally, my choice. But I'm also very intentional about letting people know I'm married. I'm happy with my husband. My husband and I, like it's just something that we've always done.
yeah.
So when somebody approaches me or something is said to me, it's an automatic. My face will say it before my mouth does 9 times out of 10, not on purpose, but my face will kind of.
Well,
I don't do well with it.
and so let's pause right there. Based on what she's talked about, now we don't know what his side of it is with this infidelity that's happened. We don't know if this may not seem like a big deal. Is he still holding that against himself and his family? Is he still dealing with what he put
Mhm.
his wife
Did
through?
they ever actually get that? And then the 4 therapists that they went through, did they ever actually resolve that?
Now, what I wanted to get to is it says we've been married close to 8 years together since 2015. In April 2016, he asked me to marry him. He's quite overweight. So, um, it's got to be hard. I can't imagine what it's like. Like how did you contemplate having that discussion with me when I was so heavy? Because I already kicked my own butt enough. I had already failed time and time again. It was something that was dominating my mind. Um, so and I'm a pretty sensitive guy anyway, but I want to talk about that, and then we can get into the other parts of this.
Well, for us, it was the sex thing because we started talking about things that we wanted to try or things that, became an interest. And it was like, dude, we can't make that work. And so I had to come up with a way to approach it and say that mechanics are not going to work on that. Or there are a couple of times where I had to tell you, I can't do that anymore because you're too wide. It's painful for me.
Yeah.
And so it's a difficult conversation to have, but because the intimate side of our marriage is such a large part of our marriage, it was a conversation that had to be had. Now, we did have a couple of times where I said something and it hurt you,
Mhm.
and it wasn't meant to hurt you. It came out at the wrong time or in the wrong way, and I didn't mean to hurt you. I've never meant to purposely hurt you, but sometimes those things have to be said. But again, if you don't understand or have the premise of say it ugly, then you're gonna end up, it's a slippery slope to be on because you're setting that person up to take it as a dig, whether you mean for it to be or not.
Yeah.
For us though, it was about the intimacy thing, and then your health, because you were getting sick a lot. You had a lot of things going on. You were always stressing out. Your stomach was always having issues. There were certain foods that would affect you a certain way. And so it just became kind of maybe we need to try something different. Maybe, we need to do something different, because I started becoming concerned with the health side of it. And then you started becoming concerned with the health side of it.
Well, I was always concerned about it. So let's bring this. Let's get started on trying to help Jane understand what this is about.
Okay, so here's the first question that I need to know, because she's already said she wants out. Is that where you are? Because if you are set that you just want out, you're done with this, you've tried it, you don't like it, it's not changing, and you're done. But he's not having the conversation, then you need to make the decision and you need to make the first step. If that's not where you are, which I don't think it is, based on the fact that she hasn't done anything yet, you can say it, but you're not moving forward. So he doesn't have to change. He doesn't have to do anything because you're not really putting in the effort for what you're saying it is that you're going to do or what you want. You're just constantly bringing it up and reminding him.
Well, based on what we've read, and the other thing is, listeners, Jane, as you're listening to this, know that what we're doing is we're providing you our thoughts based on the context we know, and based on the information we have, and it's coming from a place, a deep desire for us to be able to help you.
Well,
So if it sounds like we're being overly negative, we're actually talking through.
I'm trying
this.
to unpack it. I'm
Yeah.
trying to see where you're starting from. When we did our marriage counseling with Rita, the very first thing that she asked me was, where are you in it? Where are you in it? Are you willing to work through this? Are you willing to try to make this work? Or are you done? Because if you're done, you're going to waste my time. You're going to waste your time. And there's no point in doing that. If you're done, be done. I'll help you figure out what your next step is. If you're not done, which based on the conversations that we had and what I was feeling and the emotions I was going through, I wasn't done. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to let this go. I wanted to figure out if there was a way to fix it, but I didn't know. I am not capable on my own to figure out when I'm in the middle of it. What do I do?
Of course.
So, what we're trying to do is unpack. What we have is just a glimpse in an email, and I don't have both sides of the story. And generally, there's three sides of the story. There's your version, his version, and then what really happened. And that's not to say that either one is actually lying or anything to that effect, but sometimes we forget details. Sometimes there are things that maybe somebody else sees or hears that we forget about, and then those come up later in the wash. My concern is, I want to know where you're at in this. Are you done, or do you want to fix it? Because you're coming to us for help, which to me tells me you want to know how to fix it. But if you're coming to me with how do I make him change? I can't answer that for you, because in our situation, with my counseling with Rita, when Quincy and I started, the counseling started with me personally. Quincy wasn't part of the equation. It was me because I was struggling with my own past, my own hiccups, my own depression, my own anger issues, my own resentments. And I was in a place where I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like I could breathe. I felt like I was always angry. I was always frustrated, or I just disconnected and I was numb. And so I had to go to somebody to help work me out of that situation. And the things that Quincy was doing that were affecting me, point blank, I was told to by Rita, you can't do anything about that. It's not mine to deal with. It's not mine to change you. It's not my responsibility to make you fix something. Now, my part is to tell you, I don't like it when you do this because it hurts me. Or I don't like when you say this because it makes me feel this way. But it is not my responsibility to tell you how to change it or fix it, or to force you to fix it. If he doesn't want to change, you can't change a person.
Mm-hmm. I'm just writing some notes.
No, you're fine. However, if he does want to keep this marriage and if he does want to work on these things, he's going to have to get some help on his end. It sounds to me like he needs more a one-on-one type scenario. But I can't really speak to him or what he's doing or why he's doing without understanding where he's coming from. I have what she's told me, but I don't know to what extent the things that he was brought up in, the things that he learned, what his father showed him, however that goes.
Well, you heard a little bit about his dad when he was young, taking him to stripper parties at people's houses.
I did, but I'm wondering if there's not something else that happened or went on.
Could be.
And because that tends to stem people in a direction as well. And it's usually one of two things. Either they get stuck on something because there's a feeling or an emotion attached to it that they may not necessarily want, but they can't really get rid of. And so they get stuck in well, it's just the way I am. And the other is people tend to do what was done to them to others. And so there's a fine line there that I don't know both sides. I don't know which side of the story we're on there. And I don't want to make any speculations because I don't know. But I do know that some people, if he was younger and he was exposed to these things, there is a possibility that things happened to him or were done to him that, for a 13, 14-year-old boy are inappropriate.
Could be.
And in all aspects, it's inappropriate to take a kid in a strip joint. Duh.
Yeah.
But there are other things that could have happened. And for that age and what is the word? The emotional intelligence and the things that come along with that and the anchors that it holds, it could be something that he just has never really fully worked through. And it could be something that was more of an abuse situation, not necessarily in his own mind, but it is something that at that age would have been considered.
Yeah.
A molestation or an abuse situation. I can't speak to that. So I can't really, I'm not justifying what he's doing. I just don't understand why. There's a why. There's always a why. When there's an addiction, there is a why. We're either burying something, coping with something, or we don't want to face something.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it's either your excuse because you can do this and I don't have to deal with all this other crap, or it's your, I don't want to say crutch because it's not the right word, but it's like your, it is what it is. It's just what I do. I don't have to change it. It's just what I do and you have to accept it. And the reality is, no, we don't.
Yeah, you don't. You don't have to accept it. And, I've got some thoughts about where the husband is. I had some things happen to me when I was, a brand new teenager that are unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
My parents divorced. Those two things didn't happen at the same time. I'm just saying, when I was 5 years old, my parents divorced. I was heavyset, for most of my young.
You're an emotional eater.
And my adult life.
And you and you also grew up in a home that was poor for a while. So when you got food, you ate food.
Yeah, there are countless things that I can talk about that may relate some to many of you men listening out there. Now, I don't have the husband's permission to go in on him, so I'll speak in generalities pertaining to myself, and maybe pertaining to some of the things that she's talking about. But it's obvious that this husband, this man, much like myself, is anchored somewhere in the past.
Mm-hmm.
When I was so far overweight, I had no respect for myself. I had no standard I lived by. I had no self-control. I had no self-respect. And when you look at the actions he's taking, how he is justifying the things that he's doing when his wife says, this hurts me. Yet at the same token, when another man does that to his wife, he gets upset about it. That's a double standard, unacceptable. It's okay.
It's also a fear.
It is. If as a man, if you're going to lick other women with your eyeballs and then get upset when men do that to your woman, it's a double standard.
Well, there's also, and this is just a principle that you live by. And I know this because I've been with you for 25 years, 26 technically. We have daughters. And one standard you have always lived by since they were little bitty was you don't look at women leeringly because you don't want men looking at our daughters that way. You don't, taking our daughter into the gym and watching men look at her is very frustrating.
Well, here's the thing. And like I told my daughters, I know men because I am one.
Mm-hmm.
I know teenage boys because I was one.
Mm-hmm.
And our hormones are built a certain way to visually look at women and be attracted to them and to want that. That's what we are. But I decided to live my life according to a standard that I decided was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, friends that would say they watch porn or whatever. And it's like, oh, I watch porn because, if I watch, Angelina Jolie, then when I'm doing my wife, I can think about her. And then it's like I'm having sex with Angelina Jolie. And I said, that's stupid. I said, number one, I don't want to be thinking of any other woman when I'm having sex with my wife. And I sure as heck would never want her to be thinking of another man. I want to make this deep connection with her. I want to honor her, with my mind, with my body, and with my soul, because that's what I promised to do. But if we go all the way back to what we did in our relationship until we became intentional, you do what you see.
Mm-hmm.
So if this guy's dad took him to strip clubs, he's anchored there. Mm-hmm. There's an experience there. What does that say about his dad? And what does that say about his upbringing? What does that say about his dad's respect for himself? What does that say about his dad's respect for his mother? What does that say about his dad's respect for women?
What does it say about his mother's situation?
We don't know any of that.
That's what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is he's got a certain picture of women. Now, he could have even been hurt by a woman or damaged by a woman. And so when you say it's my freedom, it's my right to do this, well, then you need to recognize that your wife also has a right, and her right could be, I'm over this. I'm done with you demoralizing me, and I have a freedom and a right to leave you. And no matter how many tears you shed or how you try to manipulate me, I don't have to stick around because that's my right. So you're going to do things that make me feel X, Y, and Z with your actions, or I'm going to do things to protect myself and my children from that. And so you have a guy here, guys like this in general. Some of this stuff I haven't dealt with, but like my dad never took me to stripper parties. You know what I'm saying? But you have an obvious man who is a grown-up in body, but remains anchored in his adolescence. He can't move past his past.
Mm-hmm.
So, husband, if you listen to this, are you satisfied with setting this example for your son
Your daughters.
and your daughter? Are you satisfied with teaching them that this is the example that they need to go out and live as well? So if they make promises or vows to another human being, and it is whatever your vows were, I promise to love you. Well, what does that look like? Does that mean I'm going to continually do things that hurt you deeply and emotionally? Because that's not love. That's not what love looks like.
Mm-mm.
So you have no standard for your life. You are an example to your children, to your wife, to other men. So it's acceptable for you to treat your wife, whom I am sure you have sworn in your heart to protect. You're not protecting the woman you swore to protect.
From you.
You're not protecting her from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? You've got zero value in you. You have no self-respect. Because if Jeannie tells me, I'll just tell you right now, you're doing this, it hurts me. I'm not going to tell her, I'm not going to say to her, number one, because I respect my wife, I love her. I'm not going to say it's my freedom to do that. So you're trying to pin me down. You're trying to hem me up. You're not letting me be me. So the husband, us as men, he's got something he needs to resolve. He has decisions he wants to make. If he broke down in tears at the thought of her leaving and it was authentic, then he needs help. The fact is, though, is that he's been fired by some people because he's not willing to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he remains overweight. He's not willing to commit. He's not willing to do the hard work. He's unwilling to change his life for not only his good, but the benefit of those around him. He's unwilling to do these things. Now, that is my perception because I was there one time. I was at 382 pounds or more. And I was, what I would say, probably depressed. I felt trapped. I felt consumed by failure because I could not get away from this suit I had grown myself in. So when I got stressed, I would eat. Everything was about eating.
Mm-hmm.
It's about feeding an addiction. I had an addiction with food. So right now, he is focused on feeding his addictions, whether it's just the common courtesy to your wife that you look at women this way when she's around, unacceptable, especially if she's telling you, this hurts me. But then you get upset when other men look at her.
Well, and here, okay, outside looking in, I do this a lot because we work with married couples. We are married. I watch other married couples. I can tell by looking at a couple if the guy is with his woman and he is looking at another female, instantly anyone that I would be around, we instantly don't respect you. My husband does not look at another woman and admire another woman in my presence. Now, I can't speak to what you do when I'm not there. I can because I know you. But when I'm not there, that is your responsibility to hold that and be accountable to yourself, not me.
Yeah.
When someone looks at our daughters a certain way, especially when it's older men, I'm the same way. They're beautiful girls. But this is somebody's daughter. This is a young girl. Now, he doesn't like it when somebody looks at his wife. What does he do when someone looks at his daughter? This is the example you're setting for her. You can't tell her anything about a teenage boy. You cannot give her any advice about what a teenage boy will do, what not to do. You can't say anything about how he looks at her. You can't say anything about what they say to her because you are the example and you are exactly like that.
Well, here's the thing is he can say that I'm not trying to pile on you, husband. I'm going based on what your wife has told me and what you continually do, according to what she's telling us. But here's what you're saying. What you say doesn't matter. What you say to your daughter. Let's say your daughter has a boyfriend in a few years and he is unfaithful to her, or he's looking at other women, or he's groping other girl. He's doing these things. And your daughter comes and she shares her heart and she's hurt and she's frustrated. Whatever you say about this boy or to this boy is meaningless because it's your actions that speak for you. So I'm saying all of this to say the way you treat your wife, and wife the way you treat your husband, is the example. It's the approval. It is the permission that you give your children to allow other people to treat them.
I am going to say this, though. There are two sides to this marriage. So on Jane's side, if all you two do is argue over this one point and over this continuous thing, what's missing? There's never just a his fault or her fault. There's always our fault. We're in this together. So I would ask something I had to do, and Rita made me do it several times. What part do you play in this? What are you not doing? What could you be doing better? Maybe he needs more attention. Maybe he needs more intimacy. Maybe he needs to feel like he's appreciated. Maybe he needs words of affirmation. What is that there's something missing between the two, that she's not confident in herself enough that if he looked at somebody else, she's concerned for what he's going to do. Granted, he has a history from what she's told us. But that's still, your confidence in yourself is yours. It has nothing to do with your spouse. It's not his responsibility to make you feel confident or to make you proud of who you are or what you look like or how you behave. That's all you. It's not his place. But there has to be a missing link somewhere, because addictions, usually when somebody fights an addiction and they might have a span of time where maybe it's a less active addiction or something that maybe they've gotten over and then they relapse. What causes the relapse? You didn't just lose weight and not have issues bringing it back. If you would lose weight for a while, and if something, a hospital stay with the kids would throw us through a loop, and it was, well, you know what, we're stuck down here. We're just going to eat whatever's available. And then we would go off the rails for 3 or 4 days. And that was enough that by the time we got home, well, I'll get back on my thing on Monday. And then Monday would come and, oh, well, shoot, I screwed up on Monday. So I'm going to wait till next Monday. It was a pattern. We both did it. I'm not nailing you. We both did it. But that's what I'm saying. What's happening that is allowing this thing to keep coming up? I'm not blaming either side. I'm just saying, look for the patterns. When did these things? He had a streak that was better when he wasn't doing these things, at least to her knowledge. And then she started noticing the behaviors became more commonplace. Okay, what was the pattern? What happened? When you go through your journaling and you start doing what we call a brain dump, go through and write out the things that you can remember. What is the first thing you remember before this popped back up again? Because just me, myself, and I would stay away from the in-laws if they really had a part to play in that whole situation. But we've had to have those conversations where we've cut people out of our life for things that were not right for our marriage. But what was going on?
Yeah, and I think that paints the picture of what this guy grew up with.
Yeah.
If his mother and his sister
were okay with
set
the
him up,
situation.
set him up to cheat on his wife, and then his dad took him to strip clubs.
If mom was okay with dad doing those things, and I'm just going to assume, and I could be wrong, but if you're taking your boy to a strip club and lap dances are okay and things of that nature, and it's acceptable in your marriage, I mean, the examples being taught are not.
They're not. But
they're not right.
I'm very big.
We're speculating though, because we don't know for sure.
I'm very big on personal responsibility, period. Whatever your upbringing was, you have the power to choose something new.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't and you need help, then get help, but you got to do the work. You have to do the work. And so if I start to walk some of this back as we're thinking through it, um, based on the actions that led to his family setting him up. If you've drank alcohol before and you've had more than you should, you know that your judgment is not what it needs to be.
Mhm.
You can even drink enough to where you don't remember anything. So if his family set him up and he made this decision to be unfaithful to his wife, but the setup was by, like earnestly, if it was by his mother and his sister, what's the quality of human being? And then for his dad, I don't know what his dad's dad did, but in my personal opinion, it's not acceptable to take your son to see strippers at 13. That causes a problem.
Mhm.
If you have a porn addiction, if you have any kind of addiction that deals with like a physical sense, you have to be intentional about overcoming it. You have to be willing to go through the hard work to become free of it. If your justification is, it's my freedom, you've got,
Then
uh,
go be free.
yeah.
That would be my response. Then go be free.
If your freedom to choose porn and to violate your wife's heart is more important than your marriage, maybe he just does need to be a bachelor.
Mhm.
But there's other things here that we need to discuss a little bit, which is she used to be confident. She used to take pride in who she was. She used to have friends. And now through the process of these relationships, she's lost herself.
Mhm.
And so now how how does how do you get work through the challenges when I've hurt your feelings? How do you, like, say you're seriously hurt by me, by my actions? How do you work past that to be intimate with me? Take the physical part out of it, the emotional part. How do you as a woman work through hurt, violation of trust, any of that to get intimate with
I
me?
don't.
Okay.
In all honesty, it's kind of like there are some stages that I usually go through. If you hurt me, my first reaction is I'm going to cry and I'm going to be hurt, but it isn't going to last long because I'm going to get pissed. And once I'm pissed, I go into the mindset of what do I need for myself? What do I need to do for me? Because obviously you're not fulfilling that for me. And that becomes my fuel. What do I need? If I need to be confident, okay, what am I lacking? Do I not like the way I look? Do I not like the people I hang out with? Do I not like what I'm doing? Do I need to have more in my life? I find creative outlets. For me, my thing that fulfills me is being creative. Painting, drawing, writing, um, doing graphics on the computer. What I have to create something. That's my outlet. That's where I process through things the most. I do journal. I do try to get things out of my head as fast as possible. And if I have somebody that I trust that I can speak with about it, I'll do that. Um, but what I found happens for myself is when I start feeling good about me, being intimate becomes very easy for me because I no longer need you to make me feel like I'm confident. I no longer need you to make me feel good about myself because I feel good about myself. I'm proud of the work I put in. I'm proud of the things that I'm doing, and I'm doing things that are fulfilling me myself. It took me a long time to learn that because I thought that it was taking care of the kids was supposed to make me happy. Taking care of the kids was supposed to be what filled me. No, I needed to be full before I took care of the kids because otherwise they're draining what's not there. There's not enough to give because there's nothing there. I didn't know that. I had to learn that the hard way. So a lot of my depression came from not knowing that I needed to find my thing. For some people, it's working out. I have a friend in California. Her her big boost is when things are stressful, when she's anxious, when she's not confident, when she's struggling, she goes to the gym. And she makes it a point to make it hard for herself. She will get up at 4:45 in the morning knowing she drags ass doing it, but she does it. And she will make herself get through her workout. And she'll be pissed and she'll be grumpy and she'll be moody. And by the end of the second week, she's feeling better about herself. She sees the changes. She starts to feel better. She gets her head cleared out. It takes time, but it's that accountability to yourself to knowing what you need to fill you makes the difference. Um, that's really the hardest part, I think, for me, because you and I are very dependent on each other. And I learned this actually spending the weekend with a friend recently, that it is very hard for me when I have to make a choice between doing something with you and everybody else or doing something on my own with somebody. And a lot of that comes from the fact that I fulfill myself with the things that make me happy, but one of the things that makes me happy is being with you. And so if I'm not fulfilling those other things, I need you more. And I start to notice that, where it's like, ooh, it's not a bad thing that I'm dependent on you, but I don't want to be so dependent on you
Mm-hmm.
that I can't separate myself. Because God forbid someday one of us is going to be alive without the other. And we're not going to make it if we don't know how to make ourselves happy.
Well, it's as long as it's healthy and you're choosing,
Exactly.
that's one thing. But if you're, how do you say it?
If you're so dependent on somebody else that you can't be happy without them, there's an underlying issue. There's an underlying issue. I had to learn, when you and I met, I was very much the person I am now. The first 10 years of our marriage, I lost a lot of that. I stopped saying what I thought because I didn't want to offend you. I didn't want to piss off people around us. I didn't want people to not come and help us when we needed it because they were offended. I hid. I didn't tell people what I was going through. I didn't tell people we were struggling with. We didn't want people to know we were eating out of a food bank. For me, myself, I buried a lot of stuff because I didn't know. In the home I grew up in, I didn't know what was okay to share and what wasn't, because we didn't share shit. We did not tell people what we were going through. My parents had issues with their marriage. I didn't learn until I was almost out of high school what those issues were. I knew they argued. I knew they fought. I knew what the past was. I had no clue what the current was until I was old enough to finally catch on to some of the clues and think, oh, I didn't know all that.
Mm-hmm.
My parents shielded me from it. It was not public knowledge. It was not meant for me and my sister to know. She knew, I didn't.
Well, and that's why when I was reading Jane's email, it sounded a lot like you, because you
I
did.
hung out with the guys. I didn't do well with girls. Girls didn't like me because I was very opinionated.
And there were things early on and that went on in our relationship that really caused me to have some serious insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one time before we got married, Gene had a lot of fun in chat rooms. They were a big thing back in the 90s because computers and things were new. Well, I came home one day and she was in a chat room chatting, and it was for singles. And I was like, I was screwed up. Like, I thought, oh, you're in a singles chat room. You're married now. Why would you be in that chat room? You don't want me anymore. You want someone else.
No, it was this chat room that I had been in for 2 years prior. All of my friends were in the same room. I was just talking to the same people. But because he didn't know that, we had never really talked about it. It was people that I talked to online. It wasn't something that was ever really a big deal, at least in my mind. But when it affected you the way that it did, I put an end to it quickly.
Yeah, it caused me years and years of insecurity, because that was an anchor for me.
Mm-hmm.
It rocked me legitimately. So, you know, there are things in your relationship that can cause long-term issues, and you may not know exactly what those things are until you go back, much like what you said earlier. Let's go back to when it was better, and when did it get off the rails? What happened? And then I think what's important, I'm never one that's going to say divorce, get a divorce. That's not my thing. But I think what's important here, husband, if you are so committed to living, if you do have a porn addiction, if you are so committed to living in that addiction and you are calling it freedom, if you're addicted, you're
You're
not
not free
free.
from anything.
But if you are so committed to that, you can have what it is you want, which is your addiction, and then you'll be alone. Wife, if you are compromising your values, but you're staying because you're committed because your husband makes you feel a certain way, but every time you're in public or whatever is going, you cannot live in any kind of freedom. What?
But does he really make her feel that way?
I don't know.
Okay, so when you started losing weight before you got sick and you started trimming down, we had a couple of friends come in to visit, and his brother. At the time, they were single. My husband was not. And they all wanted to go out to a club. Now, I have 8 children. I no longer have the 115-pound, cute little size 4 body that I once had when we started out. So at this point, I have 8 children. I've been depressed. We haven't been getting along real great. We had just started kind of learning that we had issues that we were trying to work through at that point. And you started losing weight, but I was not. I was not healthy. I was not mentally, I was not healthy. Physically, I was not healthy. We were struggling. We were trying to figure it out, but we were struggling. And you were going to go out with the guys. And the plan was Quincy's the married one. He's not the drinker. So he's the designated driver. He's going to take the boys to go have a good night, and then they're going to come back. My insecurities went through the roof because you've lost all this weight. You look really good. You've put on muscle. I know these things. I'm looking at you, so I know how attractive you are, and I know the personality, and you're just nice. If somebody was to come up and start talking to you, or the guys were flirting with girls and they came around to the table and hung out, you would just talk to be nice. Whether you meant to attract anybody or not is never on your radar, but it's the personality. I know. I fell for it. So when this night came up, I lost my ever-loving mind because my first thought was, I'm not going to be enough. I'm not going to be good enough. You're not going to want to stay. You're going to find somebody else. And the whole argument was he was never looking, but other women are. And other women don't care. Hell, men don't care. I'm wearing a wedding ring. They don't care. If they see an opening, or I'm flirtatious depending on who you are. If I know you, I can flirt because I know you. My best friend's husband and I have an ongoing back and forth we've had for years, but we both know that is a line we would never ever cross. Both of our spouses know that's a line we would never ever cross. And 9 times out of 10, we do it because it's who's going to freak the other one out to get him to shut up first.
It's a
It's a game.
sarcastic. It's like a
It's a banter.
sarcastic. Yeah.
It's a banter. But I was so insecure in myself that I was worried that I was going to lose you to someone else. Now, flip the script for a minute. You've got a guy who's already been unfaithful. So her confidence is taking a shot right there. Everything that she felt from the previous marriage is all right back up to the front of the surface because I wasn't good enough in the first one. I guess I'm not good enough in this one either. Why? Now, here's the thing. That's not a you thing. That's a them thing. Is there something that's lacking? Maybe. But you have to decide for you. Why are you not good enough? What do you think makes you not good enough? It has nothing to do with what they think, because in order for you to have that thought process, there's something about you don't like, you're not confident in, you don't want anymore. What is it? For me, it was emotional baggage. I hated being emotional. Now I'm probably one of the most emotional people in the house, and I still don't like it. But I've learned over the years that if I don't process it, my girls won't either. And it's a really shitty place to be when you can't get through those things and just be happy. The other part was I wasn't taking care of me. You got to go work out. You got to start looking better. Everybody wanted to hang out with Quincy. Quincy got to go do things that I didn't get to go do because I was at home being the wife. I was at home being the mom. It caused a resentment between us. It caused strife between us. but it caused a confidence issue for me because everybody loves Quincy. I'm just Quincy's wife. So where is Jane in this? Your husband's going out and doing all these things. A, who's he going with? Who's around? How is he getting around to do all these things and you're not? If you're not confident in something, what is it you're not confident in? What is it that you used to do that you don't do now? I stopped caring about other people's opinion. I still have my moments. There are some things that I still have my moments on. But for the most part, I regained who I was when we got to the point where we started discovering what our boundaries were. And I started realizing, you know what? I let outside people convince me of things that I'm supposed to accept. It's just who they are. You just have to. No, I don't. One of our closest friends, we years, 18 years. I loved him. I loved him and his wife. I loved their kids. Their kids were like our own. But I watched over the years as we started figuring out what our boundaries were. I started noticing how he was with his wife. And for me, it was grotesque. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way he talked down to her. I didn't like the things that were said. He has a daughter. And then he was around my daughters. I was like, I don't want my girls growing up thinking that that's acceptable. Okay, so Jane, where do you sit in this? Is this acceptable for your daughter? Is this something that you want your daughter to look at a man and say, well, it's okay if he's looking at other women. It's okay if he goes and to strip clubs. It's okay if he watches porn. If it's not okay with you, then you need to set the boundary. And that needs to be something that her daughter learns quickly. Because I don't know what the age range is, but in teen years, whatever you do or you've been doing, you have no say. Your words mean nothing when you tell a teenager, don't do that. Don't do that. You're not going to like it. You're not going to be happy. Well, you do it all the time. You have no value in what you say if you've been putting up with something and not putting up a boundary. If you're not okay with it, this is the other thing that frustrates me, and this is just me personally. If you are going to keep telling him that you're going to leave, if you are going to keep putting the threat out there, you're manipulating him because you're not doing it. You're using it as a manipulation tactic to get him to do something you want him to do or else. But you're not actually doing anything, which means you're just trying to control the situation. For me, if you're going to tell me you're going to do something and you're not standing behind your word, I really don't give a shit what you have to say because you're not going to do it. And I know you're not going to do it. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And you can just keep fussing at me. It's fine, whatever. Eventually, I'm going to tune it out, or I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to be upset about it and we're going to try to fix it. And then when you still don't make that change, I'm okay, cool. We can go back to what we were doing. It's a pattern. Everybody has them. Everybody has habits. I'm not telling you to leave him. What I am telling you is set the boundary. If this is not acceptable, if you're at a baseball game with your kids and you catch him looking at another woman and it upsets you and you get frustrated, grab your keys. You can look all you want. I'm leaving now. Go home. Get an Uber. Take off. Leave him with the kids if you need to. But until you set the standard or the boundary that this is not okay with me, and I'm saying I'm going to do these things, then do them. If you're not going to do them, shut up. It is what it is in the sense that you're not holding to your own standards either. You're saying this is unacceptable, yet you're accepting it. You're saying that this hurts you, yet you're willingly sitting through it and letting it continue to happen. Why? You're not winning anything. All you're doing is talking to a wall because neither one of you is going to shift. Somebody has to do something. If you're not okay with it and you want to be who you were, would the old you put up with this shit? Honest question. If it's not something the old person in you would put up with, and that's the person that you are striving to become, why are you putting up with it? If you don't like the way somebody talks to you, do you continue talking to them? I don't. I have no issue anymore. If somebody talks to me in a way that's disrespectful, I will let you know this doesn't work for me. When you learn to talk to me as a respectful adult, cool, we can have a conversation. Until then, I'm done. And you can ask my children. I've done it to them. But what's happening is, from what I'm hearing, He's doing something. You're telling him, this hurts me. It's unacceptable. I want out. If you don't change, I'm going to leave. But you don't do anything about it. You don't leave the situation. You're at a baseball park with your kids. You're watching the kid play a game. You're watching him look at other women. If you see this and you have said multiple times, this hurts me, I don't like this, leave. Go home. Get in an Uber, get in your car, whatever, leave. And when he comes back, and what the hell happened? I told you I didn't like it. I wasn't going to sit through it. If you want to look at other women, go look at other women. I'm not going to partake in it. I'm not going to be a part of the problem. If there's no consequence, then what makes the person want to change?
Yeah, really, I can understand too. I'm not trying to protect anybody's feelings here. I can understand being so desperate that you don't know what else to do, so you're going to say what it is that you're feeling at the moment. But then when that person doesn't change, you do get into this mindset, why am I not enough for you to change? Why don't I matter enough for you to follow through on what you said you were going to do? But, and I say but, that I guess that in some people's terms, when I say the word but, that nullifies everything I just said. So what I should say is, in spite of that, I think it is important that you develop a set of non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best idea that I can come to. You've got to get back. You've got to get to a place where you say, this is acceptable for me and this is not. Because there's a difference. I do look at other women because there are other women in public.
Mm-hmm.
They cross my view. They walk in. Do I go out of my way to stare down women? No. By my own personal standard, that's not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are times at the gym where I have to take evasive measures because of the things that women wear. But that's my personal standard. I can look at another woman and say, hey, good for you. That's a good looking lady. It doesn't mean that I want her. If I look back 2, 3, 4 times, then I'm letting the dog in me do things that are not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see another guy and say, okay. I mean, there are women that we've seen together and go, whoa, holy cow,
Mm-hmm.
look at that. Like, good for you. But there's a difference in looking at someone who is attractive and saying, oh yeah, you're attractive, and licking that person with your eyeball. Or licking,
or putting them in your memory. And, some people will call it a spank bank, rub club, whatever. But if you have to pull up somebody else's image in order for you to be intimate with your spouse,
mm-hmm.
that's a problem.
Something there is broken with one or both of you. Mm-hmm. There is resentment and bitterness there. And the husband may not be resentful or bitter towards his wife, but he might be resentful and bitter towards his past. So what's important is he knows there's a problem because they've been to see therapists and counselors. So he knows there's an issue. He's choosing that over valuing his wife based on what
mm-hmm.
I hear. And so I agree with Jeannie in the sense that you need to establish some non-negotiables in your life and in your relationship.
You need to establish your own value.
It's true.
Yourself.
Because and I do think this is something that you and I, just on a minute rabbit trail, I think it's something that you and I need to explore about our interdependence or codependence.
Mm-hmm.
If it's at a place where it is unhealthy, because if I had my choice, I want to hang out with you. That's what I want to do.
Same.
But the situation, with that we're talking about, where you and one of your best friends, I'm not certain of what exactly that was. And I don't like how I reacted to it. And so we probably still have something to iron out there. What exactly was that? And
well, it's not the first time it's happened for me. Now that one was different because that was more of there are things that are between us that we don't share with others. And that was an uncomfortable situation. And I didn't want to take a risk of something that didn't need to be shared being shared.
I gotcha.
But even when we were in California, if I went and spent time and went to Knott's Berry Farm with my friend and stayed the night and we went and had a girls' weekend, I still struggled with, is this okay? Because I was having a good time, but I also missed spending time with you. And so it's a balance for me that I have to learn what is okay and what is not. Because usually if I'm away from the house and I'm doing something and I'm having a good time, you're with me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not with me, it's just kind of like, I kind of wish you were with me to share this. So it's not a bad thing. It's just a balance thing. But again,
I think it's something for us to
it's
explore in
something we need to,
another lane.
it's something different. But we used to be in a place where I was in my life with the kids and you were in your life with work, and we slept under the same roof. And we had to come to a place where we changed that. And that's kind of what I'm looking at here is it sounds like he's got one life and she's got one life, and she wants to intermingle it. I don't know what he wants to do. I think he just wants to hang on to it. But at some point, it's kind of the same thing. How badly do you want to hang on to something? Because she's saying that she has all these feelings and he makes her feel all these ways. He makes her feel like she's at home and it makes her comfortable.
Right.
But what I'm feeling that is more, she hasn't had that attention. She hasn't had that love. The relationships prior were not true love to her. And so him knowing that he has that capability, or her allowing him to have that capability, you're giving him a power that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Because you don't feel loved. If he's looking at other women and he's hurting you and you feel like you want to leave and you need to break things off and you feel like you're inadequate and you're not enough, you're not feeling love, honey. You're not feeling that. And on the small moments that he might give it to you, it's bait. Because the difference in what she's describing and what we have, you are my home. When I'm in a situation and I am uncomfortable, the first thing I reach for is your hand. If I am in a situation and my emotions are flaring, perfect example, dealing with kid stuff at the schools, and I am the hothead in the relationship. I am the one that if you hurt my kid, I will come across the table in a heartbeat. You are the grounding one. You are the more diplomatic. Let's let them hang themselves before we attack. I've never been that level-headed person. But that's a balance that we've learned to share. But if I'm in a hard moment and I'm losing my crap, you're the only person that can recognize that when other people can't.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only person who has the right to say something's off, something's not right. The emotions that we share have been built. It's not just a love that we have, it's a respect, it's a trust, it is a faith in each other. And if you don't have those things, you're going off of the physical touch and the dating moment. You know what I mean? Like it's that flicker of, oh, okay, I feel warm and I feel happy, and then poof, it's gone, and you're like, what the hell?
Well, here too, the reason we have what we have today,
hard work,
is because we were intentional about creating what we want.
Yeah.
And so that is where I see you guys. Would love to have a call with you both. Would love to sit, myself and Jeannie sit on a FaceTime or whatever with you both. Because I think even though it's very, very complicated, I think it's very simple. If you use the KISS principle, keep it super simple. That's my version. Keep it super simple. My first question would be, what do you want? And that's where you both have to go. You have to step apart and say, what do I want? So for the husband, what standard do you want? What's more important to you? Fulfilling this pornographic addiction or your relationship with your wife and your children? What's more important? I'm not asking you to tell me what you think you can do or you cannot do. I'm asking you to determine with a list, levels of importance. What's more important to you? Where does it rank? If you have got to check women out and it's just something you want, you've got to exercise your freedom. What's more important?
What are you willing to give up for it?
What's more important? Well, really, it's not what you're willing to give up. It's what are you willing to transform? Because it's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not even in play here. It's what do you want? Do you want a marriage or do you want this addiction? You choose. Keep it really simple. If what matters to you more is getting off on whatever this addiction is, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, any of that. And look, I had a friend tell me, a close friend of mine, say, hey, when you're dealing with somebody who has an addiction, you're not dealing with them. You're dealing with the addiction.
Mm-hmm.
The person's lost in there somewhere. So ask yourself, what do you want? Husband and wife, what do you want? Line out 5 things that you want. Then, what do you not want? Like I say, keep it super simple. Kiss it. Okay, now come back together. Here's what I want. Number 1, this is the most important thing to me. Okay, what's the most important thing to you? This. Okay. Go through the entire list. Now you have an idea of what's most important to both of you. Now, how do your number ones, do they mesh? Do they work? Do they cohabitate? Yes. Great. Now you have a glimpse of what it is you want. Now you can put it on the wall somewhere and say, this is what, let's just stop at number 1 for a minute. This is what we want for our relationship. This is what I want. This is what you want. Let's put it up there. Now, anything and everything you do, you push through the filter of, is it what we want? It's much like our house rules and our values. I don't have to judge or tell you what's what. We've established what our values are.
Mm-hmm.
So take the situation and put it up against what you want. Does this align with what we want or not? If the answer is no, it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if your number ones don't align, you've got some negotiating or some compromising, or you've got some furthering to go to understand what it is you want in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can listen to me. I'm on a webcam here, but I'm going to look deep into the camera. I'm looking right into you, like into your soul, listener. You're laughing, but I'm not. This is serious.
I'm laughing because you're looking at the computer that's in front of my face, and it's funny to me.
Okay. Well, I'm looking and I'm saying this. You can have the life and the relationship that you want. The question is, what are you willing to do to get there? I had to deal with things in my life that didn't align with what I wanted. You're either willing to do that or you want to live in what you have. You are a product of your choices. Life happens to us all. Good, bad, great circumstances, terrible circumstances. As you live on this earth, you will get some. Some of us feel like we get more of our share than other people.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you take this and you switch it in your mindset. Life is not happening to me, it's happening for me. Thank God for Ed Milet and whoever taught him that. I live by that now. What do you want? It's time to establish what you want and create some non negotiables. In 2009, my brother and I started the Biggest Loser Rejects. We wanted to get on that show. We wanted to lose weight. We did interviews. We did them in person. We did them over the phone. Everybody we came in contact with loved us. They wanted us on the show. Come to find out, they had too many white people on the show. It's the way it goes. So we didn't make it. I have the email. I don't think I can get into it. Anyway, I had it on a website. We started the Biggest Loser Rejects. We tried to start a community. We put our entire weight loss journey on YouTube. It's there. We did crazy videos, but we did it. We put it on there. You learn losing weight. You learn getting healthy. How many excuses you make for your life and why you are not moving forward. Because you will set a standard, you will set a goal, and then you will start justifying your actions on why you shouldn't and why you do it later. And let me tell you the truth, the way you do one is the way you do it all. And so you're doing that in your life, you're doing that in your relationships, you're doing that in your work, period. That's why I'm big on saying you have to set a standard for your life. And understand the standard that you set, the life that you live speaks louder than any of the words that you say. Because talk is cheap.
Mhm.
It is action that pays the bills. That's a fact. So figure out, guys, what it is that you want. Once you determine what you want, now you have to work on non-negotiables. And then you have to commit to working through whatever happened before. You must reconcile. If you put in the hard work to reconcile, what's going to happen is you're going to have a clean canvas. The canvas is now clean for you to paint and create what it is you want. But you'll never get there unless you both establish what do you want. And if you cannot come to an agreement on what it is that you want, it will be time to decide to go another way. Because if you guys don't want the same thing and you're fighting against each other and you're hurting one another, you're damaging each other emotionally, there are kids in that house that will be a byproduct as well.
Mhm.
They will get damaged. So, what are you willing to do? I can tell you, if you're overweight, you do not have a standard that you live by. How do I know that? Because I lived it. I'm not in perfect health. I'm not 210 pounds like I want to be. I'm not everything that I want to be, but I am consistently working to get there because I have a standard for my life. It's not just about the weight, but look, I do want to build confidence within myself, but you cannot do that until you learn how to keep promises to yourself, till you learn how to maneuver disappointment and resentment and short term gratification. How do you maneuver that? You've got to put in the work. You've got to start to play the long game. What is it that you want? Because if you continually do this short term gratification piece, your life's not going to make there's no motion forward. It's going to be the cycle. You're going to continue to circle around. So the best advice that we can give you, and I'm going to send Jeannie your emails, Jane, so that she can read through it. I wanted the first time she heard it to be on this program, and I realize it's a lot of email, and some of it I screwed up, but I wanted you to be able to hear it firsthand and then start to talk about it and for us to discuss it. My hope and prayer is that you remember we're going based on the information we have, and we're working through these things in the open, like in real time, because we want to be able to give you the opportunity to take what we're doing as we're talking about it and then go do that with your spouse.
Well, it also gives you an idea of sometimes what Rita would do is it helped me come up with questions. things I needed to ask myself, things I needed to answer for myself. What do I want? What does it look like? What am I willing to do to get it? Am I reliant on you to provide for me, or am I going to be reliant on myself to make me happy? There were a lot of things that sometimes when we do these back and forth, it's not necessarily because we have the right information or the right opinion in the situation. It's simply we're bouncing things back and forth. And if something hits to the listener or to the person who's writing, that's usually when we get the feedback is, oh my gosh, you said this and it just resonated because then it made me think of this, this, and this is what was going on. And we build from that. So it's just how we process through stuff.
Well, and let me put this out there, because we're saying here, oh, you shouldn't have to have your spouse to be happy. You should be happy on your own. That can be confusing. So here's what I want to say. When I'm firing on all cylinders, when I'm handling my faith, my meditation, my time to pray, when I'm handling my professional career, when I'm winning, when I'm succeeding, when I'm handling the gym, and when I'm doing the things that I've set as my standard, I feel fulfilled. I feel confident. I feel full. And then I can take those things and I can bring them together with my wife, and we can create happiness together. I've got to be healthy on my own. I've got to learn how to be healthy and how to live through me, not try to live through you or through my children. In the same respect, there are times where your spouse is losing and you lack confidence and you're having a difficult time, or we can come together and something magical can happen, and it can give you a boost. It can lift your spirit. So those are things that can happen. But when you both come through to this and you're both healthy and you're both strong in your faith, you're both handling your health and so on and so forth, when you bring these things together, the connection is much, much hotter. The happiness is much, much deeper. The fulfillment that you experience together is more incredible because you're bringing two healthy entities together to make this connection. Now, if you're both struggling and you come together, you're going to have a struggling connection. If one of you is strong and one of you is not, that can kind of work as long as it's not
for a while
the rule. If it's the exception, it's not the rule. Because what happens is when you are in a place that's unhealthy, you start to project that to your spouse. And so you will be living through your projection, and the connection is not going to be, because there's now a blockade to true deep connection. You can't get there because all your inadequacies are what you're living through because you're not doing the work. I can go out and work hard in my professional career and lose, but still have the confidence to go do it again because I know I did the work necessary, because there are things outside of your control. So if you're staying true and you're living your standard and you are doing the work that you set out to do, and it is all pointed in the direction of what is it that I want? What is the standard I set for myself and for our relationship? Even when you lose, you can feel like you're winning because you're making progress there. You're not going to win 100% of the time. But if you're searching for a deep connection, the healthier you guys can get within your own skin, mentally, emotionally, physically, the greater the connection when you come together. Not just sex, but in general. Because when Jeannie feels confident, she acts a certain way, and she brings that confidence to our connection. When I feel confident, I act a certain way. I display myself in a certain way, and I bring that to our connection. Now, we need to be able to bring our insecurities to one another, and it be safe enough for me to put my heart out and say, here's where I'm losing. This is why, because then your spouse can help to build you up because they have a voice that is trusted in your life, someone you give permission to speak to you and to help build you up. But as much as you can, you want to come together. You want to bring the most healthy version of who you are to your relationship because the connection is so much deeper. But if you're hiding things, if you have resentment, if you have bitterness, if you have disappointment, if you have insecurities that are within you, that's going to come through. The sex will be just sex. You're going to get off. You're going to have an orgasm, but there's not going to be a connection there. So I love that you said, what's missing? Dr. John DeBach, he has a book called Your Apology Sucks. And, one of the things that I had talked to him about is he has a video. What to say when you're, I can't remember exactly verbatim, but if you go look at it, it's how do you handle when your wife says, or your spouse says they want a threesome? And I was like, but we don't go there. He goes, oh, neither do I. If I brought that to my wife, I wouldn't be looking for another sex partner. I'd be looking for a good attorney.
Right.
He goes, but when I talk to, it's not me. It's not my place to say what's
Right
morally acceptable for your relationship. But my question is, what is missing? Why are you not being fulfilled?
Why do you need a third partner?
So you do this for your relationship, the what do you want? But the best place to start is in the mirror with what do you want? That's what got me where I am today. That's what facilitated the change in our relationship. You took responsibility for you. I took responsibility for me.
I was tired of being depressed and angry.
So the thing is too, is that we tend to look back and we say, I'm not who I used to be. And I want to go back to being who that is. And I'm going to tell you, don't do that. I'm going to tell you to look forward in who you want to be. And you may not know how, but we can help you with that. But it all starts with, what do you want? And then when you establish what you want, you start to create the non-negotiables. And when things happen, you bring them to the standard of does this align with what we said we wanted? If the answer is no, it's got to go. If the answer is yes, and somebody's off balance or frustrated or irritated, you can get down to the bottom of what that is. So establish what you want. To go back early into the email, how do you live with it? It's not something you should live with. If my wife, now look, there is a reoccurring rub between Jeannie and I. It has to do with finances. We have a hard time getting on the same page. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. There have been times where I've said, look, if you just can't get your crap together, you're going to take care of all of it. The house payment never gets made again. It never gets made. That's me being hopeless. That's me being desperate. That's me being hurt. Maybe it comes to that one time. Maybe I just have to say, you know what, screw it. If this doesn't get right, maybe I have to take that action you're talking about. And it's like, okay, I'm done. You handle it. Is it something I'm going to lose my relationship with you over? No. It's finances. It's money. But when people get desperate, they say and they do things out of desperation because they feel hopeless. Like, you don't hear me. Something is wrong. What are you doing? So the fact is that if Jeannie was cheating on me, and let's say for this show, and I know we're almost at 2 hours, but I don't care. Listen to it in spurts. It doesn't matter. Let's say Jeannie cheated on me, and I found a way to get past it, to rebuild trust, and to take you back again. And then you cheat on me again. and I continually allow that to happen, it's not something I'm going to live with. You're going to be single again, and I'm going to be single again because it's not acceptable.
Mhm.
And so if you look at it, this is damaging and hurting you emotionally. It's an action your spouse is taking. It's pretty serious. I mean, it's serious. If before we end this, if I was the kind of guy that was checking women out in front of you, how would you feel about that?
Oh, I'd be up your ass in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat.
Yeah. Why?
We wouldn't be having sex. We wouldn't be doing a lot of the things that we do now, at least not as frequently as we do now. Because if you're not satisfied with what's in front of you, then why am I here? That would be me. I grew up in a home where my dad's done the podcast. He's admitted to it. My dad cheated on my mom a few times. They worked through it. My mom stayed married to him. My sister and I didn't respect my mom because you don't have value enough in yourself to let him do his thing and go find somebody that will take care of you and that will love you the right way. They're still married. They've worked through their stuff. It took a lot of counseling, a lot, to get through this. Do I still not respect my mom? No. I respect my mother because my mom made a choice. She stuck firm to her choice and she did what she felt she needed to do to make that choice work.
Yep.
I can't fault her for that. She made the decision. This is what I want. And she worked for it. And so did he.
Mm-hmm.
Could I do that? No. Absolutely not. Why? Because I saw what it did.
Mm-hmm.
I know what that would feel like. I've had it in dating relationships before. I'm not going to be second. But this is a choice that you and I agreed upon when we got married. You and I are priority because the fact of the matter is the kids are going to grow up, they're going to marry, they're going to have their own lives, and it's going to be you and me. And if we're not number one to each other, we're going to be roommates. That's unacceptable. It's not what we wanted. I would probably try to figure out how to work through it if I had to, but it wouldn't last very long. If it was a continuing thing, you would be single.
Yeah. Yeah. As I should be.
I couldn't do that. And I wouldn't do it to you. It's not something that, I guess what's hard for me is I know there are some people that in my life that I know for a fact porn is acceptable in their marriage because it's something that they do together. That's their choice.
Mm-hmm.
If that's something that you and your spouse agree upon, that's your own marriage. I've got nothing to say there. Do I agree with it? No. Now, can I watch a movie that has a sex scene in it and not be engrossed in it or have it come to bed with us? Absolutely. It's part of life. It's something that happens. Romance movies, it's what happens. But I mean, hell, I write romance. I mean, it's kind of hard to debate that one. But you and I have a standard that we live by, and we don't bring those things into our marriage.
Yeah.
I know people that are absolutely 100% adamant. You don't look at somebody else. You don't talk to somebody else. You don't watch porn. You don't read romance. Nothing that can possibly fog the connection. I don't know that that's necessarily healthy either. I don't think there's anything wrong with, and you've said it, we both see a woman, it's like, damn, she's pretty. But it's not something we fixate on. It's just, she's pretty. Acknowledge it. That person earned that.
Mm-hmm.
They worked hard for that. Give them their kudos and move on. But to ogle and create spank bank material, that's not my thing.
Yeah, I mean, it would be demoralizing to me if I've seen you look at other men and admire them because they're handsome. I can look at other guys and say, that's a good looking dude right there. But for you to take it to the extreme, it would be demoralizing to me.
Well, and it's funny too, because and this will probably sound ugly, but it's not. When I met you, you were large. You were a big guy. That wasn't my normal that I dated. I dated baseball players. I dated football players. I didn't date big guys.
I was a football player, but man, I was out of shape.
Yeah. But I was more attracted to the way you treated me, the way you talked to me, the personality that you had, the way that you cared about other people. Those things mean something to me because your body's going to change. My body's going to change. I hadn't had kids yet. I was smoking when I was younger. Things change when you have kids, but I don't look at those things as being permanent. I wanted somebody that we have a connection. We mesh well with each other. We have similar likes, we have similar interests, we have things that we want to create together in life. We had so much in common from the get-go that we were able to build from that. We lost a little bit of it because life kicked us in the nuts several times. But once we figured out how to get back to that and how to rebuild it, we still had the same foundation we always had.
Mm-hmm.
These are the common things that we want. This is what we want for our kids. This is what we want for our grandkids. This is legacy. This isn't just we're married, we're going to have a few kids, and we're going to have a good life. This is we're married, we're in love, we love our kids. We want our kids to have an example. We're in a place in our life where our children tell other people they want a marriage like ours. That's what we built. But it didn't come easy. We went through a lot to get where we are, and we went through a lot in a short period of time.
Well, and I think many marriages do. There are some marriages out there that are just TV, I guess, and don't go through hardships, and things are perfect. You have 1.2 kids, and things just work out.
We know people who they're married and they live completely separate lives unless they go to a family function together, and then they're a family. But that's what they chose. That's what they want. That's what Quincy's saying is, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be two people who share a house and you're roommates and, you do things together when you want to, but ultimately you just really don't give a rat's ass what the other person is doing unless you have to? You just pay the bills? Or do you want a genuine friendship, somebody that you're going to, when everybody else has moved on and done their thing, you still have your bestie sitting next to you, having a good time and doing the things that you love? I watched my grandparents. My papa was a jerk. Whew, almost got that. But he loved my grandmother. And the little things that showed us that was like the private moments when he thought no one was looking and he would dance with her in the kitchen to a Frank Sinatra song. Those are the moments that my grandmother, even in her dementia, remembers.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that last. What do you want? It's really, it's easy, but it's not. Wait till you get to the point we're at where it's what do you want more of? That's a hard one.
Yeah, that can be hard.
But we had to figure out, what do we want? We had to agree on what we wanted. And then we had to say, okay, what does it look like? Is it just sharing a bed? Is it sex 3 times a week? Is it, only sex when we're not mad at each other? What does it look like? And then we had to come up with, how do we get there? How do we make that happen? What does it take to create that? What things need to change? What things do we keep? What things do we get rid of? But you can't get any of that without, what do you want?
Yeah, and it's important you know that. Now, look, there has since been some other emailing back and forth between Jane and myself, talking about things that are going on. This is just episode 1, and I'm going to ask you to read the emails, like take it, consume it, and if there's something else or another take or something deeper that you feel like you can help her with in this situation, then let's do another show, because the goal here is to help her. And look, I asked her if her husband was going to listen to this, and she said she would probably tell him to. And so, husband, Quincy at mvsmpodcast.com. If you don't like what I have to say, I understand that. I'm challenging you. I'm limited in my knowledge of all, of the entire story, because I'm going based on what Jane has talked about. So I'm going based on what I have. But what I do know is, if you promised if you made vows to this woman, which you did because you're married, check those vows. Are you honoring those vows with your lifestyle? Are you honoring those vows with your attitude? Are you honoring those vows with your actions? And if you're not, you're the problem. How do you fix it? I'll go right back to what I was talking about. What do you want? Do you want to honor the vows that you made? Because the vows you made are supposed to mean something. Jeannie and I are going to renew our vows next year. They're supposed to mean something. You've either committed to this or not. And if you are taking an action, husband or wife, if you are taking an action that harms your spouse emotionally, and it's something as basic as when you do this, it hurts me. When you do this in front of me, it hurts me. And you're like, it's my freedom to do it, and it's reasonable. You're the problem. You are the problem. And you can fix the problem. Or, like Coach Rita said, you can be right if you want to, and then you can be alone. Is that what you want? Now, look, I have a personal commitment for myself, the standard in which I live. I live my life like there's a video camera following me everywhere I go. What I do when I'm by myself is what I want to do when I'm in front of other people. It is my standard. I'm a man of faith. So I believe that there are those that are watching me all the time. But true character is what you do when nobody is looking. Now, do you have confidence in yourself? Do you have faith in yourself? Do you have integrity to know that what you do when nobody's looking is the right thing? You have to answer that. For me, yes, because I have a standard that I live my life by. That's a fact. So, what is it that you want? What were your vows? What were the vows that you made in front of God and everybody to your spouse? Are you living those? If you're not, you've got some things to fix. Your health. It's totally possible to fix your health. I don't know what's going on with your health. I don't know if you're a type 1 diabetic. I don't know if you're a type 2. I don't know anything about it. I know that me at 382 pounds, I'd had enough. So I went for surgery. I went and got a lap band. I started losing weight. I met my friend PJ, who I'm going to have on this show. And she said, you don't need that. So we stopped using the lap band. And we did work. And it was diet. And it was exercise. It was mindset. She woke up the athlete that had gone dormant in me. And I started to make it a competitive situation because I am a very competitive person. And I'm okay to suffer a little bit as long as the long term is the payoff that I'm looking for. And you have to develop that muscle of being okay to suffer. It's getting over short-term gratification, looking for the long game. It's the same thing with porn. It's the same thing with looking at other women. And there's a difference between looking and gawking or whatever other terminology you want to use. There's a lot of value in suffering to become someone better. But it's a decision for you to make. Are you going to make the right decision? I can't tell you what the right decision is. I go back and hold it to the standard of your vows. Are you living them? If you're not, you got some things to fix. Keep it super simple. Kiss it. So that's Jane. Once you listen to this, and like I said, I'm giving this priority release. We're done with it. It's coming out next episode. It's going out into the ethos. When you listen to this, give us some feedback. And chances are you are not going to be happy with everything you heard. I didn't expect Jeannie to start the conversation where she did. Because reading it, I was upset. It's like, this is simple, dude. Your wife doesn't want you to look at other women. By golly, what would happen if she was gawking after other guys? Like staring at their crotch and trying to see the package
Gray
move.
sweatpants season. That's the thing.
What if that was the case? So I was like, this is so simple. This is reasonable. This hurts your wife emotionally. It's pretty easy. Stop doing it. At least have the decency, which to me is hypocrisy, but don't do it when she's around. What do you mean it's your freaking freedom? Freedom to emotionally damage your wife? How stupid is that? But I don't know the whole story, but I still think that's stupid. If you were my friend and you told me about this going on, I said, dude, what's your freaking problem? It hurts your wife's feelings for you to check out other women. Stop. It's a part of the KISS principle. Stop hurting your wife's feelings by looking at other women. Do I need to kick you in the freaking nuts? This is easy. It's like, hey, my wife doesn't like it when I slap her in the face. She said it hurts. But I metaphorically, I just keep doing it anyway. It's my freedom.
My brain went junk punch. Sorry, just automatic reflex.
I'm saying emotionally, he's slapping her every time he does this. But it's like, yeah, my wife got mad because yesterday I slapped her in the face. She doesn't like it when I do it, but it's my freedom. It's what I choose to do.
But turnabout is fair play. If that's really how a person feels, metaphorically, don't be surprised if she slaps you back.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be surprised when you wake up one morning and she's not there. Don't be surprised when you're somewhere and she catches you doing it and she leaves you standing there by yourself. Don't be shocked by it. You earned that.
Yeah.
It's what you want. It's what you chose.
Correct. And so we've done shows that talk about, we don't know what baggage you have both brought. Husband, I don't want you to show up where I'm at and beat the crap out of me. This is my opinion. I don't want that, but I will, when I know more, be willing to tell you the truth in the hopes that you will begin to live a standard that positively impacts your family. Because what legacy do you want to live? What do you want to leave?
I have one rule that I have stuck by raising our kids, and I have people that laugh at me every time I say it, but it has been my goal from day one. I will not raise an asshole. I won't do it. If they get to a point and they choose to become an a-hole, that's their choice. But when they were with me and the way that we taught them, the standard they lived by, we did not teach them those behaviors or how to act that way. As a parent, that means I can't act that way. I cannot be that person I don't want them to be because they're watching me. They're learning from me.
And when we do, because on occasion we do, we both have given each other permission to say, hey, that sucked, man. What was
Fix
that?
it.
Yeah. So, Jane, number one, I should have said this in the beginning, but I didn't. I want to honor you. I think I said it in an email. I want to honor you because you want to make your relationship better. And you reached out. You had the courage. There are so many people that listen to this that say, crap, man, I'm going through that. But they don't reach out. I don't know why they don't reach out. Be someone who reaches out. Ask. Look, we put it all on display here. Now she's anonymous. Her marriage is anonymous. It's out there. And we're giving our opinion. Our opinion's not always right. We're not foolproof here. But you had the courage to do this. It tells me you want something better for this relationship. You are seeking somehow to get an answer and to make it better. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking advantage of the email. Once you get some time to listen to this and you've made some notes, maybe you've gotten mad a couple times, you've turned it off. I hope you've turned it back on. And you can hear the heart of what it is we are trying to do, which is to show you guys need to determine in your relationship what it is you want. If you can't come to terms with that, you're going to have to make other decisions. Our choice is reconciliation. Find a way to fix it. What are you willing to do? I'm not saying what are you willing to put up with to continue to get damaged. What are you both willing to do to establish what it is you want and walk that out? That's up for you guys to determine. But that is all that I have for now.
Same.
And it's a lot. And I appreciate your candor, honey, in listening and then, doing your best to kind of process through what you've heard and then ask some hard questions. And so thank you for that. And Jane, thank you for emailing. And listener, thank you for listening. It means the world to me that you guys download the show and that you listen, because my goal, my calling, I feel like this is my calling, is to take our journey and show you what is possible. And we've got plenty of areas that we're still working on. But I can say
25 years and we still have great material to work with.
we do. We do. But earnestly, I love you more today than I ever have.
Same.
In spite of some of the ways that we frustrate the heck out of each other and some of the cycles that we continue to go in. But this marriage is better than I ever imagined it could have been. What about for you?
No, I agree with you.
You're free to be honest. I mean,
I agree with you.
Be a hard place to be, to get called out on it, but I'm good if.
No, we're better now than we were 15 years ago. And I still think we have room to grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And lucky listeners, they'll get to watch us grow.
I'm trying to decipher your eye motions because they talk about, when people say certain things, if they're lying or telling the truth, their eyes do these things. But
I'm lying to you?
No, I was just getting ready to say, I trust you. I trust you to be honest with me, to tell me if it was or it wasn't.
Oh, you know me well enough to know I would tell you if it was or it wasn't.
Okay.
I'm generally pretty good at telling you when I don't like something.
You're pretty good.
Yep.
Okay. All right, that's it. Don't forget the email, Quincy@mvsmpodcast.com. Oh, man, I totally forgot to mention that we are going to be dropping the MVSM Guide to a Great Marriage. And if you want to get your hands on that, email Quincy@mvsmpodcast.com. I'm going to work on a link for you to sign up. It's that guide to a great marriage that is going to assist you in getting your marriage to the next level and helping you determine what it is you want and where you're going. And so that's going to come out soon. Don't have the date, but it's coming out soon. And I want you to be able to get it. So do that. Use the email, Quincy@mvsmpodcast.com. Make sure to go to QuincyMoran.com/apparel and check out our brands. Look, if you want to get this and rock it around town, I guarantee you, the pastor looked at my jacket today. I wore my Man versus Marriage. He read it. It's provocative. It makes people think, makes people wonder. And I hope someday to have Jeff on this program to talk about marriage. But you've got to
clean the office.
What's that?
I'll have to clean the office.
Clean the office anyway. Man versus Marriage, the podcast. It's right there.
I meant my books, not the
Oh,
actual office.
well, I meant the actual office. Not Born Ready, Built Ready. Family Famous. Men, have I got something coming for you? It is going to be freaking awesome when I give you the guide on becoming famous in your own family. It is amazing. I had some great role models. And then the Notorious Hustlemania. These are the types of shirt you can get at QuincyMoran.com/apparel. And that is it for now. Your final words, parting videos.
Time to go. I'm hungry.
It is almost time to eat. All
It's
right.
beyond time to eat.
Nope, we don't eat Beyond Meat. That stuff's crap. All right. She is Jeannie Moran. I'm Quincy Moran. And this is Man versus Marriage, the podcast.